Good evening, everyone. It's Maydad here from 𝒁𝒑 Health and Wellness. And tonight I'm joined by Nadia Barkos from Chill Technology, and we've got a special guest, Yonah Denyam. Hi,
Dunningham.
Yonah. How are you?
I'm great.
Did
How
I
are you?
pronounce did I pronounce your name correctly, your surname correctly?
Very close. Dunningham.
Danium.
Dunningham. Yep.
Good to see you tonight. How you doing?
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me on here. And yeah, I'm really well. I'm great. I'm keen to have a chat and see what comes.
Awesome, awesome. And Nadia, how have you been?
I've been pretty good. I'm trying to be good because I've got my boss, exercise physiologist here.
There you go.
Yeah,
He's there to keep you in line and make sure you do the right things.
that's right. I've given him full permission to kick my butt.
All right. You asked for it.
So I understand, Yona, you're an exercise physiologist. Can you in tonight's session we're going to be asking you several questions, both Nadia and I, about exercise science and human movement and that, and just wanted to find out what really got you into this industry, specifically the work that you do.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's not like it's not actually that cool of a story, to be honest. So in school I was good at maths and science, and I also used to train a lot. I used to exercise a lot. And mum was like, I was like, what am I going to do when I finish school? Mum's like, well, you love exercise and you're good at maths and science. There's this thing called exercise science. So I was like, oh yeah, right, that sounds all right. Let's do that. And I did it and I learned a lot and it was really cool. And I guess it was interesting to understand things a lot more and that kind of thing. And I guess that was how it started. And then I started working with clients and um like as part of the degree to get qualified as an exercise physiologist, you had to do, I think it was 6 months prac experience. So I worked in an exercise physiology gym for that time, and basically, yeah, learn a lot, like work with all sorts of different clientele, general population, and like musculoskeletal issues, lots of chronic conditions, and I guess learn how to use exercise as medicine within that. But I don't know. Yeah, I went on to do some more study after that as well because I realized it was like exercise was part of the problem, like that, people needed help with that, but there was a lot of, like, for example, we'd fix a shoulder issue or doing something like that, and then perhaps 3 months later, the person would be back with the same issue. And I was like, oh, okay, there's more to this. So I went into studying holistic health as well, and which was more down the path of, mindset and the psychology of change. And I guess I'm probably some similar, I think actually some interesting stuff to talk about there with you guys, knowing what you guys are into as well. I'd be very curious about that. But yeah, down that path, and just the holistic health model. So, relationship with nutrition, with food, stress management, sleep, the whole psychology of it all. And yeah, so I guess hope that answered the question. That's sort of how I got into it.
That's amazing. And you mentioned that you used to exercise and train a lot as a young man growing up. What sort of sports were you into?
I did a bit of all sorts of stuff, but the main one was surf club, like surf lifesaving, Ironman racing.
All right.
That was a big one. And then, yeah, there was a little bit of gym training alongside that helped with that. And then, I don't know, I suppose I ended up going down that path eventually with uni and stuff. And yeah, but yeah, mainly that.
So I take it board paddling and rowing was a big thing for you.
Yeah, board paddling. I was
Yeah.
gold medalist in Tasmania.
Oh wow. How cool is
On the
that?
board. Yeah.
Vision board. So yeah, I guess
Cool.
one of the next question I have for you is what does being an exercise physiologist involve? Like you mentioned before that there's more to just exercising and eating well. Like what does it involve in the grand scheme of things, but what does it mean to you specifically as well?
Yeah, for sure. Well, typically an exercise physiologist is like, for example, if someone got injured, they'd go to like perhaps a physiotherapist for their initial rehabilitation or like the acute phase of rehabilitation, and then they'd go to an exercise. They'd probably, a physio would say, all right, now go and see an exercise physiologist, and they'll get you to a stage where you're not going to get injured again. So, you know, ultimately the final stages of the rehab back to a performance point of view. So that kind of thing. But I mean, there's lots of different roles that exercise physiologists do as well within like different rehab programs for different chronic conditions, health conditions, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, there's a pretty big scope in terms of what exercise physiologists can do. I guess what it means, where I've sort of taken it is more ingraining it, or intertwining it with holistic health training programs for people, which might include specific mobility or strengthening exercises to rehab any injuries, get them pain-free, get them functioning better. From a really holistic point of view, though, I guess it depends on what might be needed for that individual. So we'll create a specific exercise training program to be able to address whatever energy systems or weaknesses within injuries or whatever need to be addressed. But then also look at it from a point of view of health as well. So, some basic focuses around principles within nutrition that will drive better health for that individual. Within whether it's weight loss, whether it's better, blood sugar control and improving insulin resistance or whatever it may be. So that side of things. And then, stress management, sleep, and I guess ultimately mindset as well. And I guess within change, looking at it from a mental perspective of, not just, cool, I'm going to do this thing for 8 weeks and use my willpower and try and be healthy or whatever, but more from a place of like, what do I really want? Okay, cool. What do I need to do to actually have that? And ultimately, who do I need to be?
I know you spoke about energy systems and stuff like that, Yonah, and currently I'm really entertaining the idea of sitting down for a course that something that Professor Fraser, the Australian professor, the late uh, Fraser, that he a course or a program that he developed, and it was based on an ECG. Like as you know, the ECG monitors your heart, your cardiac people who are going to cardiac arrest and all that stuff. They give them they do an ECG on them to monitor their and the health of their heart. And he developed this system that does exactly what the ECG does, and it monitors every part of every organs in your body, from your thyroid, your kidneys, any injuries that come up in your body, any pain, any hormone, and any issues you might have psychologically, like any any trauma, any hurt you may be feeling. Are you getting enough grounding? Are you getting enough sleep? And the quality of sleep. What are you lacking? Are you lacking enough any iron? It actually has an incredible it's very informative, and it's all AI based in that, and it's done off a voice scan.
The type of clientele I'm working with mainly are Gen Pop. So they don't really, I mean, the main energy system they're really going to benefit from is more aerobic based stuff, improving mitochondrial function, all that kind of stuff, and all the flow and benefits of that. They don't have, I mean, obviously, like within a gym setting, doing weights, there's definitely like phosphocreatine system, you're working into that, and perhaps even with some, circuits or some HIIT training or whatever, you can definitely hit the alactic systems as well. But yeah, like I mean, within them, like to be honest, the type of programming I'm typically doing now, it doesn't need to go deep into a strength and conditioning point of view, like into going, cool, we're going to get this energy system to this point, or we're going to condition this athlete for 3-minute rounds in a boxing ring, or that kind of stuff so much.
It's more functional, correct? It's more like functional human movement to get them back.
It's more, yeah, definitely. Like from a strength training point of view, it's more about just getting their body functioning well, like getting their body, out of pain, for example, is a big one. And the other thing would be probably just honestly generally moving more in general. So like so many people are too sedentary these days, and that has obviously a spiral of negative effects. So yeah, probably the biggest things that I specifically focus on with clients at the moment is more function and just generally getting their body progressing in terms of strength, in terms of optimizing like muscle mass, you know, in terms of fixing any mobility deficits or things that are altering their movement and creating pain and that kind of thing. And then just aerobically helping them improve, which doesn't need to be complicated. That's actually a pretty simple one. It could be as simple as getting people to find a movement or some way of moving more that they actually enjoy, so they actually stick to it. A lot of it's honestly, for the type of clients I'm working with at the moment, a lot of it's in their head.
In the head, yeah. I
Yeah.
had a question for you in regards to that while we're on this subject. Sorry, Nadia, that I'm holding it here, but 𝒂𝒏𝒂𝒅 winging is a problem that a lot of boxers have. I have some of it, and it's because we're so far forward. I know that some of the people that I've worked with before have given me a lot of seated rows, one arm dumbbell rows, a lot of different exercises up against the wall, subscapular settings, and all that, even with one dumbbell and that. Is that something that you come across? Is that something that you come across a lot in your field? And what sort of stuff do you do for it?
For scapular winging, at the moment, not so much. I imagine it would be. So you're talking about boxing specifically?
Yeah, so like subscapular winging, you always hunch forward, so everything is forward, nothing is back. So,
Yep.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh no, that's
but
fine.
it's
Yeah, no,
I know
100%. I know what you mean. It's not something I specifically tend to work with too much of at the moment. But you're absolutely right. Like if I mean, obviously every muscle in the body, it's like agonist, antagonist. So you've got, you know, if for example, serratus anterior and your pecs are all really tight because you're constantly forward, you're constantly punching, then yeah, of course you want to be able to even that out with, you know, lat work, rhomboid work, you know, levator, like traps, upper traps, all three levels of your traps, levator, all those like posterior muscles. I guess with the shoulder blades, like you want the ability to be able to move efficiently through like protraction, which is obviously you're punching like that forward, and retraction, so backward, and elevation, depression, and then also upward rotation and downward rotation as you reach over your head or you reach behind your back. Like do you want me to go? Do you want me to talk about
No, it's all right. We don't have to go too deep, but like I just
specific to
obviously,
boxing? I think you sound like you're on the right track. Like with, yeah, like obviously strengthening both ways. So anything that's going to pull your shoulder blades back, rows, single arm rows, any like prone, I guess. Another big thing with boxing would be like strengthening all of your rotator cuff as well. Yeah, to just be balancing out all of those. If you're doing one movement quite repetitively and a lot of it, and you're getting really strong in that movement, then obviously you want to be strong in the other direction as well. Just, I mean, it's simple stuff, but strong in
it's
the
very
other direction
specific,
as
isn't
well.
it? It's very specific what you do, isn't it? What needs to be done with exercise physiology. I know that when I hurt my back really bad, so I had a lumbar spine problem where I had two disc protrusions in my lower back and growth spurts on either side, and
Yep.
had to give up sport for a long time, 18 months. And I did some physio sides with a lady called Anna Louise, and she was in Castle Craig here in North Sydney, and she did all this stuff with TheraBands and stuff like that. She even there was one time where she gave us a bottom clencher, and we had to clench our buttocks and hold that clencher within our buttocks while we did all these exercises with our knees bent and that to just turn our TVAs on and all that sort of stuff. It's really interesting, but it's really specific stuff, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, so like I mean, it kind of depends. I guess in each situation you sort of assess the person and then find out what are their individual weaknesses. Like there's definitely some common things that do come up a lot more commonly amongst a lot of people, like things that are very common for most people. But yeah, like for example, it was it yesterday? No, what's today? Oh no, we are Tuesday. So yeah, Monday. I had a client start with me for just the first time this week. And she's actually doing some in-person sessions, which is cool. But she's actually had back pain, ongoing back pain for 10 years, like just persistent back pain for 10 years. she's done physio, she's done chiro, she's done acupuncture, massage, pretty much everything. I'm literally going to post a testimonial for her this week. But we did 3 exercises. We basically had a bit of a look, and I was like, okay, we did a basic movement screen that I get every client to do to start with. She couldn't hinge forward without any pain. This was even like, if we're talking about disc bulges don't like flexion in the lumbar spine. If they're, if they're fresh and they haven't sort of recentered and started to heal and build up integrity back, like they're really not going to like flexion, because it creates a lot more pressure on the disc, and then your disc will push, will bulge and compress on the nerve, or ultimately do something that's going to create pain. So like for her, I think she has had disc bulges previously, but even with hinging forward with a neutral spine with no flexion, she still had pain. It was like, okay. So we did 3 exercises, which was basically an exercise that really got her psoas working really well, which is a really big one for stabilizing the lumbar spine. We also did a glute exercise, which included it was a unilateral glute exercise, a cook hip lift. And we also did a Pallof press, which is going to start to get like some of those, rotational stability muscles through the spine as well, like multifidus, internal, external obliques a little bit. But ultimately we did 3 exercises, and she was pain-free for 3 days, and it took us 10 minutes. She was pain-free. She could move pain-free after 10 minutes, 3 exercises. So right, like
It's incredible, isn't it?
it is specific, like, and I guess like with those sort of things, it's hard to necessarily give advice without doing an assessment sometimes, but because I don't know, some of the things don't necessarily always make sense, but then when you do an assessment, it's like, all right, cool, we can pretty quickly figure out that. But then in other scenarios, like my wife probably wouldn't like me talking about this, but she had back pain for quite some time, and biomechanically nothing was going on. It's like, this doesn't make sense. Like, what's happening here? And anyway, like, long story short, she ended up getting some scans, and it said moderate facial loading. So she was basically constipated. And then constipation was creating like a somatosensory pain. So the nerves that innervate the large intestine are also innervating a lot of the muscles that run through the lumbar spine. And so
That's really common. That's really common. I know that my dad's just he had an accident, he got run over. But I know that what the antibiotics, for example, something as simple as antibiotics, like things like Nurofen or other stuff, that can make you constipated. It's different from person to person. It can make you constipated. And I know when I ever get constipated, I do feel tight. Well, tight, I should say, not tight, tight in the lower back and that. And it doesn't matter how much water you drink or whatever, you still, and it is all relevant, isn't it?
oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. So it's just about asking the right questions and figuring out what's going on for the individual.
Yeah, it's definitely makes a lot of sense, and I come from a spiritual background as well, so I'm not sure if anyone's heard of the book from Ina Segal, and it's the language of your body. But even the mental physical connection, like the brain gut, is like my favorite of all time. So somebody who is dealing with a lot of stress, they're not able, or they're over able to go to the toilet. And I know that a lot of my clients clearing that energy, with their mind sensors and that sort of stuff really makes a big difference. And that leads me on to my next question. So what sort of exercises would you give to somebody who suffers from neck injuries, or maybe they've had a neck injury in the past and they're trying to get back into training?
Yeah. Again, it does depend on the individual. Like, it depends on what the neck injury was. You'd want to do some assessments first up to figure out what was driving the pain. Is it a cervical disc bulge? Is it like a really common with necks? Yeah, it really depends. But I guess, like, if we were to look at it from a general point of view and go, how do we optimize the function of the neck? So I guess a big one with the neck is the neck. It obviously it is important, but it's a lot of the neck issues are really driven from the shoulders and like the thoracic spine. So you got to think like your head is pretty heavy, and if it's off center, like if you don't have, hang on, I'm a bit all over the place. I need to structure a little bit more. But if you look at your spine, so your spine's a double S, and it ideally sits as a double S. If your thoracic spine is stuck in a kyphosis, for example, then your head's always trying to find a neutral position. Eye level is trying to find a center position where you're flat on the horizon, sort of thing. So like if you are stuck in kyphosis, then your neck is going to go into more extension as well to balance that out and create a neutral head position. So in terms of that, like if your neck is in too much extension, then the neural foramen, the spinal foramen, where your spinal cord and all your nerve roots come out, is ultimately going to narrow that space, which could create nerve compression, which will alter the stimulus going to all the muscles in your neck, or could create nerve-related pain, just like sciatica in your lower back. So I guess like first point of call would be fixing the shoulders. Like I know for me, I just from working at the computer a fair bit, working on the phone a fair bit, it's like that forward shoulder position and that forward head position. So improving thoracic extension, improving shoulder flexion for me, and strength through all of those areas drastically improve my neck health. And then the other thing is like postural awareness, which is a really big one in this day and age with so many people, being on the phone all the time, head down, head forward. It's like constant tension on 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒄, which that's a very, very common one that gets really tight and creates a lot of issues. And then people are like, oh, I've got tight traps. It's not your bloody traps, it's 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒄. Often strengthening your traps will help because they're like synergistic muscles. They do a very similar action. But yeah, so in terms of bringing it back, so yeah, fix the shoulders first. And then like posture would be number two. And creating a centrated head position over your spine, because if it's slightly forward, all the posterior muscles are going to get, be doing too much work and create a lot of tension there. And then number three would be just taking it through a full range of motion. So there's some simple neck mobility exercises you could do. So like flexion, extension, lateral flexion, rotation, and then some different ones that'll basically, you can slowly take your neck through those ranges of motion. Even doing those, you can find stiff points. And if you sort of can find a stiff point, you can start to gently work into it. And ultimately just movement is medicine. Do you know what I mean? It's like a really cool, just on that, on basic function, I forget her name. Angela, I can't remember her name, but she's got a system called CARS, controlled rotations. And essentially it's a system to take every joint of your body through its full range of motion. So that essentially through doing that, you're going to reach those deep muscle fibers at all the different ends of range of motion through, all the different functions of the muscles at each joint to ultimately create some more blood flow, create some more, nutrient flow, all the good stuff that if we're sedentary, we don't get, within all of those different tissues. So something like that within the neck would be very positive as well. And then I guess, finally to be identifying what is the issue, what is the weak point that's driving the pain, what was injured or what needs to be rehabbed, and giving that a little bit of extra love alongside those other things as well. I hope that makes a bit of sense.
It really does. And I was born with a crooked neck. So essentially my head goes, so that my neck goes too far forward and my natural movement goes to forward. So I've always been taught to do these exercises and I guess working at the computer as well. It's like this is where the hunchback comes in. So and we're seeing a lot of that with kids nowadays. They're always on their phones. And I actually, as a behavioral scientist as well, I watch how people walk, and you see kids on their phone so close to their face and they've got their heads down and they're walking at the same time. And you just watch them as they tip over, they tip forward. So
run into a power pole.
I feel is the biggest concern with the population today when it comes to exercise physiology, and why is it so important in your eyes and the way you see things that people do get more movement and not be so sedentary?
Yeah, I think the biggest concern is probably literally just the lack of movement. Like it's such sedentary lifestyles. Like I think that is, yeah, from an exercise physiology point of view, from a movement point of view, I'd say that is the biggest problem, because it's like,
Yonan, is that because it creates a lot of flange or within the muscle fascia, and as a result, it just leads to a lot of other complications?
yeah, like I guess there's lots of different layers to it. Like, so yeah, from a muscle point of view, I guess, yeah, like a stagnant tissue is unhealthy tissue. Like we're designed to move. Even if you look at the lymphatic system, like it doesn't have a heart to pump lymph around. So, and lymphatic system is a massive part of detoxification. So, just movement is so key. Like ultimately, when you move, obviously that starts to pump everything in your muscles around. It's a big part of blood flow, it's a big part of lymph flow, it's a big part of detoxification, all that sort of thing. So yeah, 100%, like that's definitely part of it. There's even just a point of view of like losing, like being sedentary, like it's like that whole if you don't move it, you lose it. No, yeah, whatever it is, you move it or you'll lose it. So just like from a point of view of actually giving muscles stimulus, you know what I mean? Like giving them stimulus to actually stick around. If you're not using them, they're going to atrophy, and then as people age and as people are just they just become frail and weak, and yeah, lose muscle mass. But then even from a point of view of like cardiovascular health, from a point of view of metabolic health, Nadia, like that's a key, mate. You need to bloody move more. That'd solve a lot of your problems. Is continuing to really move more. So yeah, like
I
there's
think I think they say if you don't use it, you lose it, or something like that.
Don't use
Yeah,
it, you lose it.
yeah, yep, yeah. If you don't use it, you lose it. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, like it's just so key. Like it should just be we're designed to move, and like it should be a standard thing for everyone to move every day, in some kind of way. Just for basic health, just for cardiovascular health, just for muscle function, for detoxification, for all those different factors, for like obviously the mental health benefits, how good it feels, like,
endorphins. The endorphins is incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
100%, all of those factors. So I think that's probably the biggest issue. And that, I guess that all really ties into, yeah, how people are feeling tired, people are feeling exhausted, and then they lead to going to shitty food options or things that'll pick them up, and then the whole pathway that takes with gaining weight and negative metabolic health and all, like, yeah, negative impacts on that, on all levels down the path of diabetes or wherever it sort of goes. So like, yeah, I think just the biggest problem is lack of movement in general, and that will be one of the biggest things people that, that would honestly, I've always said it, I recommended it to Nadia, I recommend it to a lot of clients. No, I mean, there's many other facets as well. Like food would be a big one, and stress would be a big one. But one really cool thing that anyone could do, that's accessible to anyone. If you can't walk, there's other ways to do it. If you're in too much pain to walk, you get a stationary bike or something like that. But like, would be the best thing someone could do for their health, I think, right now as a whole. If everyone in the world did it, it'd be a really positive thing. Would just be a nasal breathing walk, bare feet on the beach, at a slow pace, just chilling out and expressing gratitude. That's like,
That's amazing. That's
you
that's
do
amazing.
that, you're ticking so many boxes. It's
That's amazing when you talk about nasal breathing. We had Dave Pemberton, who's a breath coach with the Batika method. Robbie not Robbie, I forget what the guy's name, the guy that developed the Batika method, McEwen. But it's something I do every day, and I make sure I do my 10 sets in the morning after training. I do my breath work. But no, it's no, I really enjoy what 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 you're sharing and taking a few notes. So thanks, Yonah.
My
Definitely.
pleasure. Yeah, likewise. I can tell I'd be able to ask you guys some interesting questions too.
Definitely. And I think that's one of the biggest things as well, because over the last 3 years of working strictly at my desk, sometimes 18 hours a day, it was really getting to the point where I was forgetting how to breathe, and I was working with a high ticket coach, working for a high ticket coach, and I was forgetting all of the necessities like movement, and I was coaching other people, you need to move, you need to step away from the vehicle, you need to do this, you need to do that. And since changing out of that scene, I strongly believe in the universe bringing what we need, and that's when I met you, Yonah, and it was amazing because I sort of played with you a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, I'll see what this guy's going to do. But having that first conversation with you, I realized that stepping outside to be in the sun was really important. Just even 5 minutes and having the bare feet in the ground, as we spoke with 𝒂𝒂𝒊𝒂𝒅 a couple of weeks ago, and when she said it, I had like happy tears. I'm saying, oh my God, this is amazing. But the gratitude, like what you just said with having a nasal breath walk, would really help everybody. And if we can get this, into our kids and just teach them, not that work hard, play hard, but look after yourself, like breathe through your nose, and think about the positive things as you're breathing and going down to the beach. Oh my God, the beach is my favorite thing. If you don't know, I'm a huge fan of dolphins. You can see all my dolphin stuff here. And the art of play is just amazing. So in saying that, your specialties are pain reduction and performing at your best. So tell us what sparked your passion about these two things specifically.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I like being an exercise physiologist and then going down that path. I found it interesting, like with the whole injury side of things. I find biomechanics really interesting, and I yeah, and I had a bunch of aches and pains throughout my own body as well at the time as well, and I found it really interesting being able to really delve deep into the anatomy and really understand, okay, what's going on here? Like, why is this not moving this way? Why is this not moving that way? Why does this hurt when I do this? And really look at the anatomy going, what's actually happening? What's shortening? What's lengthening? I found that really interesting. And so yeah, I guess it was yeah, a combination of that was the work I sort of landed in. And then I fixed a lot of stuff within myself. And then when I started my business, I was working in a gym. And because I was the only exercise physiologist there, they all the complicated people were sent my way, and everyone else got to work with the easy people. So I sort of yeah, and then I was like, all right, I like fixing things. So if if there was a problem that came my way, I'd always end up finding a solution and find a way to fix that thing. And um, I guess yeah, that was definitely part of it. And another part of it is like, like for example, I had about 5 or 6 months of my life where I had really bad hip pain. And it was at the point where I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk more than 300 meters without starting to get shooting pain up my leg into my back. And I was like, holy shit, I really experienced what it was like to be in pain. I was like, holy shit, like it's horrible. Like it sucks. People that have back pain and can't bend over and can't play with their kids, or miss out on experiences that they'd love to have in life because they're in pain. It excites me to be able to help people open up those kind of opportunities again and actually live life how they intend to. I know you guys are like definitely on the mental side of things, and Nada, you were talking about like the spiritual side of things. Like live a life fueled by love. Do you know what I mean? Rather than in fear and pain and in those limited sort of realms. Like I guess something that excites me personally is being able to live in the most abundant state I can on all levels. Ultimately, it's something I'm striving for. And yeah, so I guess that's another part of it as well. It's like I guess I've experienced both ends, and I guess you know, it excites me to be able to help people unlock those experiences and live life more abundantly without pain.
I was just going to say something with you. Have you ever heard of a guy called Dr. Eric Goodman? He's the guy from New York. He came up with an exercise, a little morning routine that it's called the foundation work.
I haven't.
And
No, I don't think I
a lot
have.
of a lot of functional patterns. It's just human movement, basically based upon uh, pelvic tilts. You know, like and just loosening up the upper body, and it's all related to like uh, your hamstrings, your lower back, your glutes. It's really cool, and I've been doing that for about well a good 10 years now, and I do it in the morning and I do it in the afternoon as well. If I didn't do that, I don't think if I didn't do that human movement, uh, incorporating that with a few other things that I do, neck movements that you were talking about, like tilting that way, going forward and back, down and up, this way, and I do it gentle movements and stuff like that. Just like a bit like a little bit of stuff that 𝒂𝒚𝒊𝒂𝒅 shares with his movements. Um, I probably wouldn't be able to get through my day. My back would probably be in so much pain. I'd be so stiff. And I think over the years, I've been able to just get through it and loosen it up. And if I wasn't doing it, it'd be just such a struggle.
Mm, yep. I haven't. I'm not completely aware of his stuff, but yeah, no, it's like it sounds good. It sounds like it's obviously helped you a lot, which is awesome.
It's almost like movements like like flowy movements of the shoulders and that, and
Yeah.
body rolls, and just like like putting your hand out and then like turning your neck to one side, stuff like that. I do that so many times because of the boxing and that. It's my neck. I need to protect my neck, and it's almost like my investment is basically enable me to do what I do and get home with the least amount of discomfort, and that's what it's all about.
Perfect. Yeah, I like it. Yep. It's
I'll see
I
if I
guess
can
like
find some resources for you.
yeah, for sure. I'll be keen to check him out. I guess like everyone has their, you know, their lifestyle, whatever that is, and it's no matter what we do, like I guess there's individual weaknesses or individual, you know, issues that pop up for each of us. Do you know what I mean? It's like whether you're boxing a lot or whether you're sitting a lot or whether you're, you know, surfing a lot or whatever it may be, like different weaknesses or different, you know, imbalances start to form in our bodies over time with whatever we're doing. So I guess if we can identify those and have those as a part of our routine, like, you know, like flowy stuff is always really good, like movement, just getting everything moving and moving in different directions and exploring the ranges of motion you can create. I love all that. I think that's awesome.
You know
The
what I think, Yona, I was just going to ask you. I know it's not on one of the lists, but subluxations and the format, the invitation of subluxation to occur is due to a muscular imbalance. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? So, if I could be wrong, but
you know, it can be, yeah, for sure.
Now you're just saying words, Maydad, because I've what's a subluxation?
It's like a joint movement, not a dislocation, but a small dislocation.
Okay, I'm gonna have to Google that because it sounds raunchy. I
But
think
like,
a lot of the words that you guys are talking about tonight are really interesting, and I'm going to watch this recording as I snippet it out for the audience and everything. But it's fascinating how passionate you are. You remember and you retain information, and movement is really important, especially with people that have disabilities like fibromyalgia, and autoimmune disease where they don't have much energy, and being able to get out and do those sorts of things is really important. And mentioned before, my friend Maydad here has experience with fibromyalgia and a couple of other ailments and injuries, and he's developed a really good routine. He's spoken about it on a couple of our lives, and they're quite extensive, but they really help him. How does movement help with those sorts of pains?
This is for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, with fibromyalgia, it's a complicated one. I'm sure Maydad would agree. It's not an easy one. Like so yeah, basically, from my understanding of fibromyalgia, there's a few. It's a multifaceted thing. So and ultimately, for whatever reason, there's a heightened state of inflammation throughout the body, throughout joints, etc. There's some research that shows a few key things that can be significantly help. One of them is mitochondrial function and improving mitochondrial function. So anything that can help there is a positive thing. So obviously, aerobic exercise and improving aerobic function, improving aerobic capacity is a really big one. Which is obviously just good in general for, thinking about it from a point of view of ability to handle stress, ability to recover from stress, ability to recover from inflammation, all that sort of stuff, like improving aerobic capacity, improving mitochondrial function, ultimately is improving our body's ability to improve energy, create energy, and ultimately create that base of ability to recover and regenerate and deal with stress and deal with inflammation, etc.
Yonan, when you talk about improving mitochondrial function and that, what can you give us something, our viewers, is something simple who don't really understand some of the terms that you and I have been using, something simple in doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it all comes back to the pillars of health. So in terms of something you could do straight away that will help. So a good example would be 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes of aerobic exercise, 3 to 5 days a week. So, that could be keeping your heart rate between 120 and 150 beats a minute for 20 to 30 minutes, 5 times a week. That'd be a really great training stimulus to be able to directly improve that. There's multiple other ways to do it, but that would be a great one, a really simple one. But then on top of that, having a good quality diet. Do you know what I mean? Getting plenty of fruit and veggies and antioxidants, getting good quality proteins, having a balanced diet, maintaining a good weight. All those basic things will be very important for it. Stress management, sleep, all those basic recovery aspects. So looking at the pillars of health, from a holistic point of view, yeah, movement, definitely more movement, and what we said before, 20 to 30 minutes, ideally 30 minutes, 5 days a week, 120 to 150 beats a minute would be a great, exercise program. Then yeah, nutrition, stress management, sleep, they're all key. If you don't have those things going, and most of us can improve, I guess there's layers within those things. It might seem simple on the outside, but it's if you look at, for example, stress, and the impact that might be having on you, there's obviously multiple layers to that. How can we perhaps look at improving our ability to deal with stress and creating more calm? Maybe it's nasal breathing. Maybe that's a simple one thing that anyone can sort of do that's going to have a direct impact on your nervous system and slowing things down and putting you more in that parasympathetic rest and digest state. So it could be the nasal breathing walks, if we're looking at simple things. But yeah, those would be some big things. And then perhaps even going into looking at your diet, going into some supplementation, any specific things that can actually help with mitochondrial function as well. Mate, you're 100% on, and it's just looking at it from a perspective of, am I having a positive adaptation or am I having a negative adaptation on all levels? It's from a point of stress management, that's a huge one. And really diving into that and going, how can I actually have a positive adaptation from a point of view of all the different energy systems, all the different health facets? How can I move things in the right direction versus move them and have a negative adaptation? Because it's ultimately, a lot of these chronic conditions, there's obviously one factor within one system or within multiple systems that have been moving, trickling in a negative direction, having a negative adaptation for a period of time. So it's like, how can we figure out what are the stresses? What are the unconscious, or what are the stresses? Are they psychological? Are they, is it a diet thing? Is there some leaky gut where, you know, food particles leaking in your bloodstream? You got a chronic immune response to that, which is now starting to attack your joint lining. Like there's many different things you go into there, I guess. But ultimately, like you're 100% right. Looking at that and just going, if you want to grow grass optimally, you need the right amount of sunlight, you need the right amount of water, you need the right quality of soil. And if you've got too much sun, not enough water, the soil dries out and it doesn't grow optimally. If you've got too much water and not enough sun, it gets soggy and it doesn't grow optimally. It's like that right ratio of all of these different things to have a positive adaptation in whatever you're trying to improve. So yeah, like I love that. It's cool.
Definitely. And you're speaking my language as well, because I own a garden center. And one thing that people come in and they say, and it relates to every single thing in your life, really, it's like, why does my grass keep dying? And they're usually a little bit tubby, like they don't move much. And I'm like, did you water it? So I couldn't be bothered. Well, if you couldn't be bothered, then maybe there's some other things that you can look at in your whole life that will make sense and keep yourself alive as well as your grass. So I guess, do you have any challenging cases that you can think of, and something that you can look back on and feel inspired to keep going?
In terms of like clients and stuff that I've helped, oh yeah, there's heaps of cool ones. I think one that I liked, I think was really cool. So I worked with a doctor, like a GP for a number of years, and he retired while I was working with him. But when he retired, like doctors work bloody hard, and they don't have much time, and their stress is high, and it's easy to not to lose track of yourself as a doctor. It really is, because you're so busy focusing on everyone else. And I think that's such a common thing just in general with a lot of people, is too much focus on everyone else and losing the focus on you. But long story short, that's sort of what had happened to him, and he'd gained a lot of weight. He had medial meniscus tears in both knees. He had disc bulges in his back. He had bursitis in both shoulders. And we got him. I think he dropped like 20 kilos. We fixed his shoulders. We got his knees really strong. We fixed his back. He was deadlifting like 130 kilos at over 70 years old. He was back squatting with a bar on his back, like close to 100 kilos, I think. And he was just killing it. And I've got a video of him. I share it sometimes. And we filmed a few doing some of his exercises, and he shared a bit of a story about it. And that was pretty cool, because it was like when he first started, he's like, oh, I can't squat. And then I was like, oh, just squat like this. Keep your shin vertical. Keep your tibia vertical. Take stress out of your knees. We'll put it through your hips rather than your knees. And he's like, oh yeah, that feels good. We got to him doing that, and we were strengthening his knees while we were. So it was, yeah, that was pretty cool. That was an awesome one.
That's cool. One thing that and I'm not sure if you see this much, but have you ever seen people and it's like you never really learned how to walk properly, or they don't function properly? I'll never forget the day that my doctor said, "You don't walk right."
Yeah, there's definitely I guess it could be a learned thing. I think as a kid we probably learned to walk pretty well, but then as we get older, like different things can pop up, that different issues, different different reasons. For different reasons we start to walk in different ways, or our gait becomes a bit abnormal for multiple reasons. So it can happen. But I don't know. I don't think I've seen you walk.
No, probably not. Yeah, I know that when I was coaching netball, I had one girl who had the duck feet, so her knees were not developed properly. And I saw that there was a problem with how she was walking and that sort of stuff. And I spoke to her parents and said, I'm really concerned that she might fall over. Like, have you spoken to your doctors and stuff like that? And, you know, whatever. And they got really upset and they took offense at it. And they said, you've got no right to tell me that there's something wrong with my child. And I guess it would have been about 5 years after that, because I coached under sixes, and not long after, she was wearing a knee brace. So one of those ones that's connected to your hip and
Yep.
they to the knees, and they basically just realign your knees back to the way they're supposed to be. So you're walking properly. And she said that because I mentioned something, her parents went away and thought they might need to do something. And I didn't take pride in it, but I thought, you know, if I didn't say something, or if a lot of people didn't say something, and they didn't acknowledge, you know, the way people move, then maybe she would have been in a wheelchair later on. Or that's basically what movement means to me. And yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because like if you just look at people, like everyone's anatomy is a little bit different. There's like obviously there's a basis of similarity there, but for example, if someone had duck feet or their feet are turned out, like there could be multiple reasons for that. And it's like, so like for example, if they've got retroverted hips, which basically just means like simply their hips like to turn out more than they like to turn in, their natural point of where their feet, like my feet turn a little bit out. They're not like crazy out, but they naturally sit a little bit out. And if I was, it's because my hips are retroverted and I can easily externally rotate my hips or turn my feet out from my hips,
Yeah.
and they don't easily turn in. But for example, if I was to go, oh, it's only normal to have straight feet, and then I always make sure my feet are straight rather than aligning with my natural anatomy where it wants to go, I could start to create issues down the chain. You know, I could start to, my femur could start to twist on my tibia and not sit in alignment there. I could start to create knee issues, or all sorts of different things. Like a prime example of that is ballet dancers. Like they go to ballet and they've got to bloody make sure their feet can go like that. What if they've got antiversion in their hips and their hips don't like to externally rotate? Why do all these ballet dancers get so many issues within their knees and all these different things? So like, yeah, I think it's a balance of like, so like for example, with that girl, she might have had hypermobility in her joints. Her tendons and ligaments might have been quite lax. She might have had, you know, retroversion in her hips. You know, she might have been a little bit overweight. She might have had a little bit of a gut, perhaps, pulled her into a bit of anterior tilt, which would again further affect her hips. So who knows? Like, I don't know. But it's a balance, I think, of respecting your anatomy and, you know, what's capable for your anthropometry, orthopedics within your hips or within whatever part of your whatever joint, and try and optimize the function of that within what's possible for you, if that sort of makes sense.
If I could just change the question, something that just came to my mind when I was doing competitive aerobics. One of the coaches that was coaching us was Tim Lloyd, and he was, I think he was very switched on. He'd studied something along the line of exercise physiology and all that, and he was somewhat of not just a gymnastic coach, but he was a flexibility coach, and he used neural links. I don't know, and I think it was stretching the adductor. Everybody that wanted to improve their flexibility, he'd stretch the adductors first, then the hip flexors, then the glutes. Then it was followed by the hamstrings or whatever, and we were able to sit in the split and achieve a flat split so much quicker than the other athletes that were just stretching, doing all their stuff. And it just took us through a certain links. And like you say, sometimes somebody can come to you, and if you understand what they need, it doesn't have to take much. It's just what that person needs in exercise prescription, as obviously you do very specifically, you know. And the results were amazing, you know.
Mm.
So
Yeah, no, I like that. I think it's yeah, when you can identify what the thing is and solve it pretty quick, that's always pretty cool.
Favorite resources, books or websites, any people that you follow that we can share with our viewers and make them or help them make some easier and better and healthier decisions.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like I'll definitely give you one, but I think again it depends on the topic, doesn't it? Like it depends on what they want to learn. But I think a really good one, for just overall health, and where I've definitely learned a lot from is a guy called 𝒂𝒊𝒂𝒅. He's a
really
bit
good.
alternative. Have you like him?
Yes.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's got a book called How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, I think it's called. I think it just gives you it just gives you a really comprehensive comprehensive guide to looking at the 4 pillars of health, which is happiness or like mental health, movement, diet, and then quiet or like quiet time, slowing down, sleeping, recovering. So yeah, I think that's a really good resource. But again, don't overcomplicate it. Sometimes it's just about taking action on what you already know. Sometimes people already know half the things they should be doing. It's a matter of actually just going, sweat, I'm going to actually really do it and take action.
Yeah, that's it.
It really is all about taking action and just being responsible for what where you are. That's it's like anything, whether it be your fitness goal, your weight goal, your desire to commit to an event and be successful at achieving something. It's all about taking action, I guess, and it's so true. One for Yonah, I know it's getting pretty late, but how do people get in touch with you should they want to learn a little bit about exercise physiology and the work that you do, perhaps even ask you to work with them?
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is just add me as a friend on Facebook, Yonah Dunniam, or on Instagram, which is custom_health coaching. So just friend or follow on either of those and just send me a message or have a look at my stuff. I post on there a fair bit. So yeah, check it out and send me a message.
And I have checked some of your stuff out. And I really like the stuff that you have to share. And yeah, it's and is there anyone out there that wants to learn a little bit about exercise physiology or is struggling with anything? Give Yonah a message as he shared the links on Facebook and Instagram, and shoot him a message, and I'm sure he's going to provide you with some very informative information, and he's going to be a good person for you guys to work with.